I think everybody knows that we have a crisis of leadership, essentially. And to solve that, we need premier education institutes. We have a lot of Aitchisonian alumni, not a lot actually, but a few great people who do a lot of work for Pakistan. We have Faisal who helps with CARE UK, Mohsin, and other people who help for charities in Pakistan. But I think sometimes we forget about the premier education institutes that you need, which take people in regardless of class, race. Institutes like LUMS, institutions like Ali Institute, which produce, teachers which go on to produce those great kids. You need these institutions at the high level to produce leaders, essentially. And I think when one reflects upon the works of Syed Babar Ali Sahab in Pakistan, you think of him as a patron of education in general, not just for Aitchison, not just the library, and from the library to the gates and other things that he's very generously donated over the years, but also his contributions in LUMS and other institutions there. So I think it's a very topical theme for today. But before we go on that, I would like to invite Major Narinder Saroop to have a few words. Thank you.
Mr. Babar Ali, gentlemen, fellow Aitchisonians, we all have heard that sentence, God moves in mysterious ways. And all of us in our lives know that you want to go in that direction, but an immovable force is pushing you in that direction. And the contradictions in life, even in a short space of time, are too numerous. I mention this because of today. For me, today began in rather sad circumstances, because I was one of those invited to Margaret Thatcher's funeral in St. Paul's. That was a sad beginning of the day. Little did I know, although I had it in my diary, that it was going to end up with a cheerful occasion and welcoming Mr. Babar Ali and to meet you again, some of you whom I met before. Now, we all know that the original donors for Aitchison Chiefs College, they were bullied by Sir Charles Aitchison to contribute money for this school. They did, but they didn't realize that they were contributing money to an institution which is going to take away their sons. They thought that this was blackmail money, that the government wanted an education institution. They hadn't realized that this really was going to take away the Yuvraj and the Nawab Saab and everybody else. So the original donors were they were a totally different kettle of fish from Mr. Babar Ali. I can't give you the statistics, but I'm sure that the number of parents who were affluent enough to send their progeny to our old school, quite a number of them have been encouraged by the very generous donations that Mr. Babar Ali has made to our old school, and in particular the library, and I'm sure there are others which I can't immediately recall. I think we first met, I had the pleasure and the privilege of meeting Mr. Babar Ali at the centenary in 1988. And since then, of course, one or two of the Aitchisonians of my generation who either come to London or when I'm in Pakistan, sadly, I've not been able to go back to Pakistan since 2005, which is about 8 years ago. So regrettably, contact is not being lost, but it's being weakened. And as we also know, Mr. Babar Ali, apart from being a philanthropist, is also a very successful businessman, and his involvement at the highest level in Pakistan in companies like Unilever and Nestle's are well known.
It's really a privilege to be with you this afternoon. I must narrate this opportunity that I had many years ago after Mrs. Thatcher retired. She was invited to Pakistan by Citibank. And she came to Lahore, and I had the privilege to sit next to her which was a very sort of small dinner. And I asked her, I said, and that'll answer the question as to why I don't want to go into politics. I asked her, I said, Madam, how much did you spend on your election? And she said, you know, my constituency is North Finchley, and I spend the money that the party gives me, which is about 7,000 or 8,000 pounds. And I have a few people who run around for me to make telephone calls, and that's all. And I said, in Pakistan, you can't even run a municipal election for less than 70,000 pounds. And she said, then you can't have democracy. You know, unless you have the kind of regime and the kind of ethics that you don't feast your voters and you pay them to the vote. All that that's why the true representatives are sent to the Parliament here in England. And so I thought I'd just mention that to you. So this I think it gives you a good reason as to why I'm not in politics. But as you know, I have for the last certainly 25, 30 years, I've been closely involved with education since we embarked on this journey of setting up LUMS. Going back to education as an important element. I mean, all of you who are sitting here, you wouldn't have been here if you hadn't been to a good school. And that opens the door for good opportunities. I certainly wouldn't have been what little I achieved in life if I hadn't been to Aitchison. Good schooling, that was sort of the foundation of not only your school, but of your value system. The character that they tried to develop and infuse in you was, Aitchison played a very important role. And, I mean, I spent 9 years at Aitchison from 34 to 43. But some of you who joined Aitchison in the junior school, you spent 13 years. And that's the longest you spend at any education institution in your life. So those are the most important things. And the bonding that you have among your classmates was, it was a lifelong relationship. I've been very fortunate that I've been associated with Aitchison certainly fairly deeply for the last 20 years on its management committee, and so I've seen Aitchison go from different phases. Unfortunately, the tragedy with Pakistan is at school level, not many people opt to go and teach. You don't have people who would dedicate their lives to be a teacher.
Sorry, I think you've already addressed it because I spoke to the principal recently, and he said there's only 5 kids who are on the scholarship at the moment, which was quite embarrassing, really, compared to NOP. And if we are working on a target now, that's really good to know. There's already people here who have pledged money, so from my year, there's at least 4.
I think the best thing would be, from your side, if you start building up a fund, you won't be able to achieve a high figure in the beginning, but it'll snowball, and every year people will be able to contribute. But on our side, we will set up a system. For the NOP program, what we have done at LUMS is that we've gone to the top schools that give top results throughout the country. Matriculation is government schools, not private schools. And then we go and talk to the students in those schools that here's an opportunity that you can come into LUMS provided you are able to take our test. And our test consists of, an English test, a numerical test, and maybe some other common sense, general knowledge test. And we give them samples of the papers that we've done in the past. And the teachers and the students then work towards that. Then a year later, we bring, initially we're talking about 7,000 students. And of the 7,000, we boil it down to about 500. And we have two campuses, one in Karachi and one in Lahore. We bring them there for 2 to 3 weeks for intensive coaching. And then to sort of prepare them for the test 3 months later. And of those, then we select, there's a blind selection. When we are admitting students, we really don't know whether they're coming from the NOP or these are the paying students. So we find that about 50 of the 500 make it through that bar.
My question was that in our country, the research culture is very low. It's not weak, but it's...
Well, it's coming up. It's coming up. You come back and you work there.
And we should have different grants.
Don't work for grants. You sweat it out and go and find out things. Mm-hmm. You people are too much looking for handouts.
No, I mean, I'm on a scholarship. I have my scholarship.
So you come and we'll get you all the data you want.
Okay. But we should have, what I'm trying to say is that we should have focused more on social sciences and humanities.
There is there's a tremendous amount of philanthropy in Pakistan. You have no idea the amount of money that people give, but it's not organized giving. And what we need to do is to help them donate money to causes which affect a larger group rather than a targeted group, a smaller one. So you come over and we'll help you.
All right.
जहाँ